I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to the award-winning podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Thanks so much for listening to my podcast. If you like what you hear, please follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and also at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Thanks so much for listening. Enjoy it. I am so excited to be partnering with Rockets of Awesome, which is one of my favorite places to get kids' clothes. They had a pop-up in New York last year, and we would go and jump in the ball pit and buy clothes, and it was great. And now they're offering listeners 20% off of their Rockets of Awesome box, which comes 4 times a year with like a magical box of clothes that'll come and surprise and delight your kids, because what's more fun than opening up a box of clothes? Well, I mean, I guess maybe a box of toys. But anyway, Rockets of Awesome is amazing. Go to rocketsofawesome.com/books, and the discount code is BOOKS, and it will be live August 1st. And I hope you enjoy it, and I'll be doing the box right along with you. So this is interesting. The Boys Club is the book we're talking about today and who I interviewed the author about. But the author, Katz, is a pseudonym. So I don't really know what her name was, but that's the name on the book, and she was great. Katz, the book is The Boys Club. She is a graduate of the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and Columbia Law School, and began her career at a major Manhattan law firm. She's a native of New Jersey and now lives in New York City, where she is employed at another large law firm. Boys Club is her first novel, and it was already optioned by Netflix. Welcome, Erica. Thanks so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you. I feel like this has been scheduled for so long. So some of my long lead time ones, I'm like, oh, it's finally coming up. This is exciting.
I mean, this is one of the first podcasts I'm doing, and I sold my book over a year ago. So you think you've been waiting for time. I feel like this is the most bizarre waiting experience of my entire life, especially because I thought it was going to look so different pre-COVID. And now I've been waiting over a year, and here we are, no impending launch to speak of.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's still coming out though, right? I mean,
no launch party, I mean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, I didn't get the memo on that. Okay, good.
No readings, no nothing. So it's interesting.
Oh, my heart really goes out to everybody who this has happened to. It's just insane.
Oh gosh, this is like small potatoes compared to how some people are affected by COVID. It just looks different from how I thought it would, but it's all good. I'm super excited about it.
So take me back to when you decided to write this book. I know that you're a lawyer. There's a lot of stuff about a firm that you made up, but you also work for a firm. This is a pseudonym, which is a whole nother conversation, which I'm totally impressed you can pull off in today's day and age. So take me back into when, did you always like to write? Has this been a lifelong dream? Was it a lark? Just how did we get here?
So I always loved to read and write. I think I never did anything with professional aspirations, but it was always in the dialogue of my life that I love to write, etc. English sort of is a way my brain works, and writing things down is a lot of how I make sense of things. I was always sort of that, angsty teenager that would write letters that I never sent, to my parents when I was mad at them, or some, boyfriend, whatever that means. And I would just write them down and never send them. And I sort of got older. I don't think I could compute how to make a living creative writing. And so I think I went to law school more to be financially independent than I did because I had any true passion about being an attorney. I come from a family of doctors, and, I was told it's really important to have a profession, and I get grossed out by sickness. And I don't like touching people I don't know. So that sort of left me with law school, because there was no way I was becoming a physician.
I love how you put that in the book. And I guess maybe this is something your parents said to you, the expectation of the main character's parents were that she be a doctor or a lawyer, and then it trails off, and those are the options.
Yes, I think my parents still struggle with a more creative pursuit of a life, but they've been unbelievably supportive. But I think it was last week, my mom asked me, when can we officially consider you an author? And I was like, I think now, like, but I think she meant like, are you going to write another? Like, what? And it's always like that with them. I think they're just really sort of science minded, regular paychecks and 401ks. And I don't regret it all or, bemoan at all that they instilled that within me, because law school was a tremendous education. And so I went to law school and I became a lawyer, and everyone says, as soon as I say that I was a lawyer and I wrote a book, every lawyer I know hates it, so great that you're becoming an author. And the truth is I didn't hate it. I don't hate it. I actually really liked it. It wasn't, I think, my highest and best use as a human being. And I also didn't feel any real need to write creatively until it was about like 2016 going into 2017. And Trump was running and Brett Kavanaugh was having his confirmation hearings, and the Me Too movement was at a boiling point, and I was having a ton of difficulty making sense of the world around me. And I started to write with no real aim at writing a novel. But the interesting thing was that the book didn't come out in like the letters I had written when I was younger, all first person. It came out first person fiction, which I thought was really interesting. And I think a lot of things that I felt and thought actually were said from other characters' perspectives, which psychologically was very interesting to me. But in retrospect, the more I talk about the process of writing the book, I did write because I was having trouble understanding the perspectives of people around me. And I think in the most beautiful way, this book was sort of a therapy for me, because I had to understand these other perspectives in the novel. And I think it made me the psychological term is, I guess, like less judgmental and more settled. But honestly, it just chilled me out to write a novel. So, it was all great. It was good fun. And I got a lot out of it. And I hope everyone else does too.
That's awesome. So what was it like? Like, when were you doing this? Did you go to work and then write at night, or like, when did you get it all done?
So I tried for a little while. I tried everything to do it in the same days that I worked. I tried waking up at like 5 a.m. and going for a run and then writing. I tried, it's kind of difficult as a corporate lawyer to duck out early, but I tried that. What I ended up doing was taking chunks of vacation time for like a 1.5 year period. And rather than vacationing, I would just lock myself in my apartment and try to write this book. And in between, I would jot down ideas, but I found my legal brain so separate from my creative brain that it was really difficult to come home from work and write, or like start checking my email and then go into writing. I think part of being an attorney and even working in a law firm, I stopped practicing. And so still working in a law firm is just so precise. Like, the objective every day is not to mince words and, to be as direct as possible. And I think that's not the objective when you're writing, and you're given a lot more leeway to explain your thoughts. And I feel lucky that HarperCollins sort of gave me the leeway to explain my thoughts for as long as, or as short as I wanted to. And it's so different from law. So I used to take time away and write, and everyone thought I was nuts. I mean, at first, my friends gave me a hard time. My family told me I was going to like short circuit, that the point of a vacation is to vacate your life, when I was just sort of cranking away. And I think what people didn't realize is that writing is a complete vacation for me. I love it. I mean, it's a way to get out of myself. And I felt very refreshed and invigorated after these weeks that I would spend writing. It was a little double life-ish and super weird to return to work, and everyone's like, where were you? And like, sometimes I'd lie and I'd be like, I was at my parents' beach house, which just like doesn't exist. But other times I would just like, change the subject and explain why I wasn't tan coming back from a beach vacation. But yeah, it was an interesting way to do it. And that's how I did it. Who knows if one day I won't have to take vacations from law to write a book, and I'll just write books.
Why did you feel like you had to hide that?
From work?
Yeah. No, why did you not feel like you could say, I hid in my closet and wrote a book? Like, I think that's the coolest thing I've ever heard, but.
Right. Well, I think it raises some eyebrows, like, because then in my mind, and by the way, this is all in my mind, the inevitable question would be, what's the book about? And then it would say a law firm. And then I just felt like it would just need so much explanation before I even knew what it was. And I didn't know what it was at first. I mean, the iterations of this book were focused initially on the first draft I wrote. If you can even consider it a draft, it might just be like a different novel entirely that I threw out, but it was focused on an inter-office relationship, like an affair. And then I reread it and I very quickly realized it was so flat and I wasn't even interested in it. And I was far more interested in the relationships around the affair, which I think is what the Boys Club focuses on. I mean, I think those friendships are really strong. I think the other females in the firm come through a lot stronger. So I didn't even know what it was, considering I never did an outline for this. So like the idea of someone else asking me to explain it was absolutely terrifying. It had less to do with the judgment behind the questions and just like, I didn't even know. It felt a little ridiculous. So yeah, I just kept it sort of to myself for a while.
And was this, I mean, I'm sure everyone will ask you, and I hate asking questions that everybody asks, but in terms of like the autobiographical element, like, did you call 911 during your first orientation? Did someone in the room do that by accident? Like, where are you getting all these little snippets, or is it a mishmash?
So I think the answer is it is a mishmash. Not to toot my own horn, but I think some of the funnier things are totally made up. Actually, the first draft of the book was more autobiographical than the final. And I think sort of things sputted from reality and my imagination. I've always had a big imagination, sort of took them and ran with them. But, no, I've never forgotten my pants at work. I've actually never done cocaine. I had to like Google what does cocaine feel like. I'm really like not a drug person. I'd rather drink. And there's just so many drugs in the book. And like, there are funny things. Like, I think the first draft I turned in said the character bought like a dime bag of cocaine, and my editor called me like hysterically laughing at me. And like, that doesn't make any sense. That would be like nothing. And I was like, I don't get it. And she's like, it's $10. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that. But yeah, like stuff like that. And yeah, I think it's testament to the fact that you can write realistically as long as you're willing to put in the legwork of trying to understand someone else's perspective, which I really tried to do. I took a lot of time. I mean, I think you were asking more of the funny anecdotes, but there's a sexual assault in the book, which never happened to me. And I spent a ton of time reading firsthand accounts and interviews and police transcripts of victims of sexual assault and crying my eyes out and having a difficult time dating in New York because, everyone just seemed like a predator to me. But yeah, I hope I did justice to the voice of those people. And yeah, most of the book is completely fabricated. Some of it has buds of reality. I actually think the only thing that's truly, truly real is the hours you work as a first year associate. For me, it was a grind. And for Alex, it's a grind. So I think that like tension you feel in a high stakes work environment, that was sort of probably the most real thing in the book for me.
So how did you deal with like the sort of almost self-imposed PTSD with like tons and tons of research on a really painful, upsetting topic? How did you sort of weave your way out of that fear, or have you?
Yeah, I think actually from what I can understand, it's a lot the way it happens for people who go through it is like you process it, you talk about it. For me, I wrote about it. That was a great therapy for me. And you meet people in your life who show you that they're not that way. And sooner or later, you're not just pretending that you're not worried about it. You're just actually not worried about it. And I think that happened on a far more condensed timeline for me because it was only my imagination, thank God, involved. But I could see the process just taking such a long time and being so grueling. And, you really needing to put in the work as you go through the motions of pretending you're okay. And, sooner or later, your head catches up to your body if you just sort of live your life. So it was a great lesson for me on how to cope with things. And I hope I never really get any closer to it than that because it was hard for me and I wasn't that close to it.
Wow. I love how you put in, transcripts and, court-ish things. And, I just love like the authenticity, I guess it brings. And I was like,
did you read the transcripts? I always wonder.
Yeah. In here, in the book? Yeah. I thought that was so cool. I was trying to keep track. Like, I'm like, I know the defendant. I mean, not to sound like a moron, but like, that's not my area. I'm not a lawyer.
I wonder if I think the majority of people probably don't read as closely as you and also don't know the nomenclature and will gloss over it. But I think there's like little nuggets in there that are quite interesting if people put in the time. So
personally, like I love in books where things get inserted that you're not expecting or that look different or feel different or I don't know. It's like sometimes there's a picture in a book. I don't know. Just like I like that. I read so many books that I love when the form itself takes on a unique shape. So I thought it was really cool. And so actually like that makes me pay more attention to those passages because I think why did she put that in? What was the role of that? Why didn't she just summarize that? What am I supposed to get out of this? I don't know. So I think those are really cool.
That's great. Yeah. And I think I put those in original transcript form just because at the time I was writing, I kept seeing these victims, unequivocal victims just raked over the coals for things they had done in the past, or the general chit chat around, the chatter around them in popular circles was, but she slept with a million, whatever, victim shaming and what have you. And it just seems so ridiculous to me, how people contextualize other people's lives. And so I really felt strongly that I wanted you to see Alex have to defend her choices that had nothing to do with the trial she was a part of. And additionally, I felt really strongly that she needed to be super imperfect. Unfortunately, I keep getting the question about the unlikable protagonist, but I really like her. But I just think she's super imperfect. She got caught up in the materialism and, some of the stuff she says to her parents sometimes is admittedly things that I've sometimes thought, but I hope I don't say quite as abrasively as she does. And yeah, and she's just super imperfect, but I don't dislike her. And my hope is that it can get people more comfortable when they see and hear transcripts from court reports or watch a trial on TV, that this is a human who had all these decisions before and after whatever they're being involved in court for. And part of sifting through the truth is to not judge, I think, right? It doesn't make a crime any less punishable because the victim is unlikable, as some people would say. So
interesting. Well, so tell me about not using your real name. What's that about?
So I still work at a law firm, and I think that I just didn't want the book. It has less to do with any sort of publicity than it does the fact, similar to what I was just saying, so it's a great transition. I didn't want the book to be about me. I think it loses its value as soon as people start dismissing it as a true story, because people will make assumptions about me and people will start to talk about what firm I'm involved in. And I think my next statement might surprise people. I'm worried that it will curtail the honest conversation about the character and the protagonist and where she made mistakes. I wonder if people are just so much more comfortable talking about faults of people who don't exist, right? I don't want it to be some sort of value judgment on my life. First of all, it's fiction. But second of all, I think people are reluctant to say, God, Alex really made a mistake by doing X, Y, and Z. And where was she wrong? And where did she really mess up? And where was she not a friend of women? And where was she an aggressor to her friends and things like that? And I think fiction is a really beautiful vehicle for doing that. And the fact that my life parallels hers in any capacity, I think makes people dismiss it as nonfiction.
Mm-hmm. People love to do that. One unfortunate byproduct of fiction is that that's sure. Everyone's first assumption.
Absolutely. I'm I don't want people to focus on what firms I've worked for. I want them to talk about Classico and Fitch and the structure of Classico and Fitch and how it's messed up and how it works and how they missed the mark on how to promote diversity. And it has nothing to do with the firms they've worked at.
Right.
But I want people to talk about that rather than guessing where they are, right? I just think it's great if people can look at it as a work of fiction, because part of what I wrote is I see the way people talk when they think it's real and it's not a productive conversation, right? So if no one's worried about offending anyone or victim blaming or doing whatever because these people and things don't exist, then I wonder where we'll get. How can you promote diversity? How could, Derek's character have been kept around and his talent sort of better utilized? And how could he have been made more comfortable and all of that without wondering if Derek's going to get offended and, whatever.
I wrote this novel, which I will probably just keep in a drawer at this point, but I wrote this novel and in it I included and it was fiction. I made it up. I really did. But I showed it to my mother and she immediately assumed it was about my ex-husband, and was like, she writes me back in all caps and was like, what a bastard. And I was like, what? No, it's fiction. I made it up. I made up things that were specifically not anything that happened because I made it up. So anyway, I don't know. You just can't win.
Yeah, I think there was this period of like, I want to say I'm super close with my family. And I think there was like, I mean, my sister is my best friend. So I don't think she ever really like didn't believe that it was fiction. But there was this period where like I could feel my older brother and my parents just like every once in a while looking at me like, she do a ton of cocaine and sleep with a partner. You know? And I was like having dinner, like when I could feel it.
Yeah.
And I think they got over it. I think my dad really worried about the assault being real and never, and asked me just like to confirm more than anyone else in my family that it was fiction. And my agent, who's like amazing, just, said to me, everyone's going to think this is you until you write your second book. So, in a way to get me motivated. So the second book is totally different. I'm about halfway done with it. And I hope maybe that chills people out from the guessing game with me.
Oh, good. Well, good strategy. And it's being made into a series or a movie, or you have big news of some sort, right?
So it got optioned as a movie by Netflix, and I hope you're right and it's being made, but I think things are a bit stalled in the industry right now. The script is in the works, so, fingers and toes, but it has been optioned, but I don't know if it will be made. I really hope it will as a feature film.
That's awesome. Well,
yeah.
I mean, that's the best first step. You gotta take that step.
Totally. I would love to see it on the screen. I think it'd be too cool.
What advice would you have for aspiring authors?
I mean, not like I'm really any expert. Maybe I can give advice next time. Like my mom said, like, when can you consider yourself an author?
I think you should tell your mom that you and I spoke, and you can officially call yourself an author now. I am holding this book in my hands, and I read it, and I am not your friend. Like, I didn't know you. And so that I think constitutes being an author.
Right. I think any advice I would give, so this is not my advice that I think I've come up with by myself is, and it's true for writing and it's true for life, which is don't be afraid to realize what's not working and shift gears. I think that's a lesson that lots of determined women learn too late. And like I said, I read that first draft, which I thought was genius, by the way, while I was writing it. And it just felt flat. And I thought about the hours, I thought about the vacation days I took writing it. And there was a small voice inside me that said, should you just turn it in and see if anyone else likes it? But if you're not, if the real you isn't 100% satisfied with it, no one else is going to buy it. So don't be afraid to be your own toughest critic and shift gears and put in the hours. And just for the record, I don't think those hours are ever wasted, because at least if you keep the same character, or even if you don't, you learn so much about what you're writing. Like, the person who I wrote about an interoffice affair was Alex Vogel. And I want to say 10% of what I wrote made it into the final book. But I learned so much about her by writing those chapters that I think it made her a stronger character in the end. So my advice is don't be afraid to throw out what you've done if it's not great, and be your own toughest critic. The second piece of advice, an editor at Random House named Peter Gethers, who's amazing, gave me, which was don't write immediately. Like, have a thought, let it marinate, take a weekend away, go for a walk, play it out in your mind, let it sit for weeks even, and then write, which was just, it hadn't even occurred to me to sort of, when I had a great thought, not write, maybe jot it down, but not sit down and start writing in paragraph form. And I think it actually really helped you write a better novel.
Awesome. Well, Erica, thank you. Congratulations on being an author, officially an author. I'm really excited for you to have your book finally come out. And yeah, great job. I'm so glad you took the time to spend your vacation writing it, because look at all the people you're going to entertain. It's pretty awesome. Time well spent.
Thank you for reading.
No problem. All right.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Be well.
Thanks. You too. Bye. Thanks again for listening to my podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. If you liked this episode, please follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books, and sign up for my mailing list at zibbyowens.com so you can always hear about the latest things I'm up to. Thanks a lot. Thanks so much to Rockets of Awesome for giving us a discount of 20% off your 4 times a year boxes. rocketsofawesome.com/books and discount code BOOKS. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music. Thanks for listening. You could always email me at zibby@zibbyowens.com.